Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Way back in 1998, the late Secretary General of the United Nations by name Kofi Annan thought of an idea, brought an idea of saying the only way to bring world order where crimes committed that are not punishable in local courts, local countries, regional courts could be taken to an international crimes court. The Rome Statute and Rome Treaty of 1998 July was an offspring of already cooked DSGE intelligence system mechanism to keep Africa under check. Up to date, the French government pays 70% of the salaries of the International Criminal Court, from the porter to the judge to the prosecutor and the rest of the other people. This was a project of Kofi Annan and the Kofi Annan Foundation, followed by George Soros as an accomplice of Kofi Annan, brought in by Luis Moreno Campo and the entire system of the West, some countries in the West, to keep check on African countries that did not agree with the policies of the French and to their policies of Western culture. The International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Campo agreed in all this that yes, he has been picking money, extra monies, and we followed the story together with my group in France, powerful investigators in France who worked together with me, and we found out that, truly speaking, Luis Moreno Campo, Fernandez Gumedi, the former judge, the president of the International Criminal Court, laundered the money, some coming from American banks themselves. This evidence was put in the ICC. In the case of Bashir versus the chief prosecutor, I filed an application which I still have and which I'm going to publicize again so that people can know that I was right. I've been vindicated because the American friends now have found that my credibility is real, that I was right when I stood up to say this court is corrupt. This court launders money, $17 million of United States money, laundered through Bahamas, through New York banks, back to Ocampo's personal assistant, by then called Fernandez Gumedi Silvia, who later on rose to the ranks of becoming the president of International Criminal Court. It has taken us time, energy, effort, resources to investigate the corruption scandal that have rocked the International Criminal Court. Why should African countries continue to be in the ICC, yet even the superpowers like America are saying no, we have enough courts to try our own people? Viewers, it has taken Americans over 20 years to listen to our voices when we told Rainberger in Nairobi that this court is a corrupt court.
Today, on the eve of September the 11th, I want to deliver a clear and unambiguous message on behalf of the President of the United States. The United States will use any means necessary to protect our citizens and those of our allies from unjust prosecution by this illegitimate court. We will not cooperate with the ICC. We will provide no assistance to the ICC, and we certainly will not join the ICC. We will let the ICC die on its own. After all, for all intents and purposes, the ICC is already dead to us.
A case of the Kenyan people. These cases in Kenya, the chief prosecutor called Fatou Bensouda put serious statements at the end of the cases, discharge and termination. In legal language, these cases pose a very serious threat in the future. What the people of Kenya can do, and they should do, is today to wrap up the work envelope. Because until this envelope is sealed, thrown in Indian Ocean, the chief prosecutor in the future will come and look for that envelope, use it to incriminate people again. It brings me back to the situation. America is sealing its journey out of the ICC. Why do you wait? Why don't you take this opportunity to seal your journeys out of the ICC? America is quitting, warning that it cannot no longer be a party to such an obnoxious court, a court that has no powers, that talks from this side and vomits from the other side, a court that cuts and pastes evidence, a court that buys witnesses, a court that incites incentives, gives incentives to witnesses of a passport and a relocation, then you tell lies about people. A court that sentences you as per the words there. Why should you leave a country that has a jury that checks on what the judges would do, the excesses of judges, and go to a country, a court that has no jury? Time has come for Africa to think. Do we need this court? Does Africa need this court?
In the fight against corruption, it has been demonstrated throughout the world that unless you sustain the war, and it is a war, remember that there are individuals, not only in Nigeria, but throughout the world, who suckle from the breasts of corruption. And they are not just about to win themselves off the suckling. They must be forced out of it, and they'll fight back. Because there are individuals, even in government, in all sectors of government, who now take their children to school on the basis of money corruptly acquired. They live in houses that are corruptly acquired. They do everything on the basis of things that are acquired through corruption. So when you want to stop it, they are going to kill you. They are going to ensure that you are neutralized. These are the people that you are fighting against, because these are individuals whose conscience is dead, and they are going to do anything on earth to prevent you. In fact, when one chooses to fight corruption, one must remember that he or she can't be eliminated at all times. And what President Buhari, and indeed any other president in the world, must do is to recruit the population. If the population has been wedded to the idea that corruption is a bad thing, then that is the beginning of the success of that battle. When I see, for example, your former Minister for Petroleum being investigated in the United Kingdom without being a sadist, I'm very happy. Because if you look at the wealth that he is alleged to have accumulated, that is unexplained wealth. Even if he lived for she lived for 1,000 years, she would never make that kind of money. James Ivory, who was prosecuted, convicted, and served sentence in the United Kingdom. What lacks in Africa is punishment. Impunity is alive and well in Africa. And we, the electorate, as I say, times without number, are in the business of celebrating thieves. We must stop. Yesterday, Barrister Farana said it very well, that we camouflage theft by giving them nice English names: money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, and all those veneers that make them look as if it is some kind of nice game. Let us call these men and women by the right name. They are thieves, stealing on an industrial scale. They are murderers. And once we begin to call them like that, and they have a mark of Cain upon their forehead, and we shun them, has it been done in African countries? Yes, it has been done. And I keep on repeating, in countries such as Tanzania, they are being dealt with. In Rwanda, they are being dealt with. In Mauritius, they are being dealt with. In Botswana, they are being dealt with. Once you begin to deal with them, then the others who may want to behave like them will begin to take the cue. We must, in the nature of things, earn what we earn through the sweat of our brow. That is the only way in which Africa will realize their potential. Many of these individuals who are in positions of leadership in Africa don't want to leave because they are thieves. And they are scared. They are scared that if they left office, they would be prosecuted. And my view is that they should be prosecuted. You know, individuals such as Hissène Habré, who we know what he did, was it in Chad, are a good example to the leadership that impunity will not thrive. Because I've been talking to a friend of mine from the Cameroons who tells me what is happening in their country right now. And other African countries are blind to it. It doesn't even occupy the headlines of the neighboring newspapers, of the country's neighbors' newspapers. Yet the Cameroon now should be in the same position as we see the conflict in Catalan in Spain. Yet we are attacking it in page 13 in newspapers in Nigeria, in Liberia, and other countries. The time has come that Africa must learn and realize that the world is not bothered about Africa. The world is only bothered about Africa when they want to take the resources of Africa. Then they bother. They want oil, they bother. And I'm using the word bother in a very deliberate fashion, not in the traditional orthodox fashion. They bother when they want to take our timber. They bother when they want to take our bauxite, when they want to take our cocoa, when they want to take our uranium. But they don't bother about us. They come to our continent without disrespecting the elephant, and they want to preserve the elephant so that they can come and watch the elephant, but they don't care if 100 Africans die. They want to preserve our monkeys. They want to preserve our leopards and our other animals, but they don't care about us. To them, Africa is a zoo of sorts. And until the day that we Africans realize that we are on our own, we are going nowhere. And very soon they are going to shut us out, if they have not shut us out already. We'll not go to the United States of America, we'll not go to Europe, and I'm happy that we are being forced to stay in Africa. Let us stay in Africa and build Africa. I mean, what does Africa lack in terms of resources? What do we lack? If it is solar energy, which continent is capable of producing solar energy to light this continent and the entire earth? If it is hydroelectricity, what can we not generate? If it is minerals, if we wanted to make bombs, if we should, where do they get their uranium from? If it is timber, what don't we have? If it is human resources, we are 2 billion of us, and we are people who have intelligence. And yet we are kept in a constant state of conflict. The Europeans, the French persuading their former colonies that they are more French than they are Yoruba. They are more French than they are Wolofs and Mandinkas. The British persuading us that we are more British than we are Ibibio or Yoruba. And of course, when we find ourselves in that schizophrenic state, then we engage in internal conflict and they sell their arms to us. Tell me, which African country makes guns? None. I think Africans must recognize that bad governance is harmful to their very well-being, not only for the current generation, but generations yet to be born. This is a continent that has always had potential. These are a people that have always had potential. But since we regained our independence from the colonialists, African leaders in many countries have consistently demonstrated that they are not working in the interest of their people. And that is sad, because many of the individuals who occupied positions of leadership are still beholden to the colonial masters. We see former French colonized nations leaders who are beholden to Paris, those who are colonized by Portugal beholden to Lisbon, those who are colonized by Belgium beholden to Brussels, those colonized by the United Kingdom beholden to London, and the single country that was colonized by Spain, Equatorial Guinea, beholden to Madrid. And this is tragic. Of course, currently, many African leaders are getting beholden to Beijing, and progressively the United States of America in Washington. The net effect is that the African agenda is being sacrificed to the detriment of the peoples. And we have examples which are live as I speak. The problems in the Cameroon, the problems in Togo, the problems in South Sudan, the problem in Central African Republic, in Mali, in Mauritania. And these are sad things. And the tragic thing is that the African Union appears to be helpless in this situation. Africa has been victimized by systems of government which we do not understand and which are not serving us well. And the time is now to wake up and to begin to find African solutions to African problems. Is it doable? Yes, it is. But we must wake up from our slumber, because those who are in positions of leadership are quite comfortable with the situation as it is. We must have something in the nature of an Arab Spring. The Arab streets woke up and they told their leaders, you are going to do that which is in our best interest. Unfortunately, some of the gains made after the Arab Spring have been clawed back. And that is a lesson for us, that if you regain your independence, you must remain eternally vigilant, because the forces of reaction are very persistent. You know what is amazing?
To you, wherever you're watching us from, thank you so much for joining us. This is Good Morning Africa Show. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and the station is Punchline Africa Television, coming to you all the way from the Kenya's capital here in Nairobi. It is bright and sunny today. I think we are back to summer here. That's the beauty of Africa. We have a very beautiful weather all year round. It has been a bit rainy for a couple of few days, but now there seems to be, the weather has changed and it is bright and sunny, and people can go out and just enjoy good food and enjoy light dressing. So thank you so much wherever you're watching us from. It could be an evening, it could be an afternoon, because we are watched across the world. And please, while you be engaging with us, it's always a pleasure to know where you're watching us from. But thank you so much. I see a lot of you are already here commenting and engaging with us, and I'll be going through a lot of these conversations as we proceed. I'll be reading some of your comments So keep writing. We have a lot to talk about. Of course, today the second phase of the SGR opens, and President Kenyatta is set to launch this. So we will talk about that. And remember, in Matters Africa, we have a lot also to look at. Mozambique went to its elections yesterday. I'll bring you the latest. Democratic Republic of Congo. The other time here, we were talking about a plane that, disappeared. Apparently, it went and, crashed somewhere. But there's some details here that are not really adding up for me, or perhaps after I read the news, you'll let me know what you think of it. So we will also talk about that. We will look at Ethiopia and rains that are causing havoc there that have claimed a couple of lives, and also Zimbabwe. Doctors are still on strike, and now they are being joined by other public servants. How will that continue to affect the economy and the service delivery there in a country that is already, on its knees in matters of financial crisis? There has been an economic crisis in that country, and I don't know until when. What will happen? What will it take for Zimbabwe to come up and come back to normalcy there? So things are becoming very tough there for President Mnangagwa. So then we will go to Guinea. Yesterday, I think we had a conversation here about protests that happened. Remember, President Alpha Conde, his second term in office, which is constitutional, allowed in the constitution, 2 terms there, ends next year. But he had, intimated that he wants to go for a 3rd term. And so that will mean that there has to be a change in the constitution. So that has not been received very well by Guineans there. And we've seen clashes between the protesters with the police, and I will let you know the latest there and what is happening there in Guinea. This could turn out to be murky, as in the case and what happened in 2015 with Burundi here, when President Pierre Nkurunziza thought he'd done a very wonderful job and thought he should be allowed to go for a 3rd term. So he forced himself and added more years in the term, as in 7-year, term there. So, and of course, the country is still also set to go to its elections next year. So a lot will be happening. But now we will look at what is happening in Guinea, and does this has a potential of blowing out of proportion should Mr. Alpha Conde continue with his quest for staying in power there in that country. And we'll look at Uganda, and President Yoweri Museveni is not very happy in the manner police are taking care of the security in that country, and I will bring you the details. And in Ivory Coast, a very young politician there has declared that he will be vying for the presidency come next year. What will this mean to President Ouattara's presidency? Will it take away his votes, especially from the young voters? And will it mark a new beginning for that country that is still reeling for that post-election chaos? Remember that happened, that saw even their former president being taken to the ICC. But I think he was released, still in Belgium, because there's some things that the prosecutor, the International Court, Criminal Court, said they're still relooking at. So he has not been completely freed. So he was released, but with conditions. So he cannot travel very much. So he's still held in Belgium. And we've seen even a former president going there to reach out to him. I don't know, forming alliances or what have you. But we'll look at what is happening in Ivory Coast. And also in Tanzania, President Magufuli has insisted all those refugees that came from Burundi after the 2015 civil war broke out, and President Pierre Nkurunziza insisted on going to a 3rd term. The country erupted with chaos at that time, and a lot of refugees found their way in Tanzania, over 200,000 of them. And President Magufuli has been very adamant, saying they have to go back because Burundi has some semblance of peace right now, and so there was no need for them to continue being in Tanzania, so they are being forced back. Something, of course, that the United Nations Refugees Commission has not received very well, but he's insisted they have to go, and there's no 2 ways about it. We will look at Sudan. I think we talked about it yesterday and maybe made a bit of light of it, about President Salva Kiir's role in finding lasting peace in Sudan. President Salva Kiir of South Sudan, who has not been able to, make sure that the peace deal holds very well in his place, is now the mediator in Sudan's peace process there. So we will bring you the latest about that. And also, very interesting, and this is something that Dr. Matanga has been mentioning here. Right now, it is now the United Nations Security Council is set to visit South Sudan this Sunday. What will that mean to South Sudan? And if Mr. Salva Kiir and Riek Machar have, the peace process, and the deadline is looming on 12th of November. Nothing much has been done since they last met, and there are contentious issues which both sides are needed to iron out. What is the latest? We are not receiving any more information. The government is not updating the people of South Sudan, all the stakeholders involved. So this visit by the United Nations Security Council, what will it mean, and the kind of impact it will have in the peace process that finally will culminate to forming the unity government there in South Sudan? What would that mean to South Sudan and to the rest of the world that is actually waiting to see that this peace process goes through and South Sudan normalizes so that they can be able to rebuild their country? And also in Nigeria, the latest about, the activist that was, arrested, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. He has been in jail. Remember, the High Court ruled for him to be released, but the police in Nigeria, or the authorities there, have refused to release this person. And so the judge's ruling, I don't know why judges keep making these orders. If the High Court had already ruled for this person to be released, why are we even still having other court sessions while the other one was disregarded by the government? But this is something that we will talk about. And also Cameroon, guess what? Mrs. Paul Biya, that is Chantal Biya, I didn't know she had her own Grand Prix. You know that one that happens in France, Tour de France or something like that? Madame has her own there in Cameroon, so we will look at that later on. So that is just what is in store for you. And we'll be coming back and looking at African news-making headlines there. So let's just, as usual, I'd like for us to just take a look at, what is making headlines in Kenya here. And as what we do here, we'll go through the three leading newspapers here, just quickly on the headlines. And I will not go too much into the details. And Dr. Matanga will be joining me in a bit. So I want to rush with this. So when he comes, he finds that we're finished so that we can have the topical discussion of the day. So we start with the Star newspaper, and senators go after 10 governors in graft war, and it says PAC, that is the Public Account Committee, tells EACC, that is the body that is mandated in taking care of corruption in the country, and the DCI to probe 10 counties. A committee recommends investigations of 10 current and 7 former county bosses over financial irregularities. And that is a story that is found on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. So, senators there have been grilling the governors, and some had refused even to show up in those sessions there. And they're saying that current and former governors could soon find themselves on the radar of the detectives after a parliamentary committee recommended graft investigations of their administrations. Now, the Senate Public Accounts and Investigations Committee wants at least 10 governors and 7 former county chiefs investigated for possible loss of funds during their tenures. And some of the counties mentioned in that report included Nyamira County, headed by John Nyagarama, and Kivuda Kibwanas Makueni, Paul Chepkwonyi Kericho, and Uasin Gishu, led by Jackson Mandago, and who else? Also Salim Mvurias, that is the governor of Kwale, and Embu, headed by Governor Martin Wambora, and Kilifi as well, and Emerson Kingi. So these are just some of the recommendations by the Public Accounts Committee, that some of these governors who were there and who are now heading these different counties needs to be investigated over the loss of a lot of public funds there, and mismanagement, and also not mismanagement, just corruption, period, and theft of public funds there in the counties. Like, that is the one thing that we devolved so well the country managed to devolve corruption very beautifully well in the manner that you can't even believe. So these people, they will be investigated, and I will keep you up to date with what will be happening. And of course, on top there, the messy divorce between Linturi and, the Meru senator there, Mr. Mithika Linturi, and his former wife, although he's saying he never married this wife. So apparently there have been witnesses in court trying to, even the priest who married them came and said, yes, I'm the one who married these two. But, Mr. Linturi has been insisting, no, they were never married. And so that has been something that has been going on. And I will not even get into the details of it, but, you find it in the front pages of the newspaper, so you have to just make a mention and just move forward. And still, it says IG gets 2 weeks to probe immigration after TV expose. And also, guard with bullet in spine for 17 years loses compensation. So those are stories in page 2, 3. And if you want to know the details of all of that, you can just grab yourself a copy of the Star newspaper, or better still, you can go to their website and get more details. And we look at the Standard newspaper here, and it is very interesting here what they've put as, the headline there. And it says, how we denied Raila Prime Minister's post. This is coming from Materi Kiriri, Kibaki's closest aide, speaks on power intrigues, plus why they stopped Mama Lucy from visiting her ailing husband in State House. If you want to read the details of it, which I will read, I haven't gone through this, you can go to page 3 of the Standard newspaper and, read. I think she's one of the people that the former First Lady slapped. She was, was he a State House controller? I think he was slapped by the First Lady, Mama Lucy Kibaki, there over, something she said that she was not very pleased, so there, if you want to know the details. And now Materi Kireri is speaking in the open there. Go to page 3 of the Standard newspaper. And nothing much really, but so, they're carrying a lot of course, the Madaraka, and this we'll talk about in a short bit, the launching of the second phase of the SGR. We will look at it just in a short while. And we look at the last one, which is the Daily Nation, where MCAs take home up to 25,000 shillings per day. Excuse me, 25,000 shillings per day. Hold on. Now, in a country choking on debt, ward representatives are lining their pockets at the expense of projects to uplift lives of Kenyans. Okay, now we have to look at this, because now this one is not music to my ears. Let me just find out what this is about, and then we can just look at what is happening across Africa. And it says some members of the county assemblies are earning up to 3 times their salaries through hefty allowances, provoking outrage from Kenyans. Data from the Office of the Controller of Budget shows that Narok County spent an average of 763,639 per MCA, up from 328,757 shillings. It was followed by the Taita Taveta, which spent about 722,292 on ward representatives a month. For what? Now, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission yesterday condemned the MCAs, saying that while a court decision gave them a blank check, their conscience should tell them what they are doing is not right. And you think these people has conscience, really? Clearly. Even as SRC, they have failed, but they've been fighting this body that is mandated to, regulating the salaries of public servants. So they were hoping that the MCAs and these politicians, their conscience will help them in doing the right thing. Like, seriously, when did these politicians, especially the ones we have in this country, when was their conscience even bothered them that what they're doing is not right? They're not even serving the people they are mandated to be serving right. You think they would care about conscience? All right. Silvanus, you're saying you're tuned in from Kasarani there. Very good morning to you. You're asking, where is Dr. Matanga? I should have stepped in for him. He's coming, don't worry. Just taking us through what is happening here. Chris Biko Tobiko is saying the government must change or else we change it come 2022. All right. And William Aja and the rest of you keep writing. So, perhaps we'll just look at this, what is happening. And then today, SGR Phase 2 is being opened and is being launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the second phase of the standard gauge railway are finally bringing to operationalization of the rail between Nairobi and Suswa after 5 months delay. Commissioning of the 120.49 kilometers project will see Madaraka Express passengers and freight services commence. Now, the second phase of course, Kenya's new railway will start and running from the capital Nairobi to Naivasha. A town will be open today for passenger services only. The project, which commenced in 2017, cuts across Kajiado, Nakuru, and Narok with 4 passenger stations on Gatarungai, Ngong, Mai Mahiu, and Suswa. Plans for phase 2B hit a snag in April after the government failed to secure the much needed 368 billion Kenya shillings for the project. Now, the completion of the line had been delayed by compensation, where 1,810 persons were affected, and the most affected area was 35-kilometer stretch between Embul Bowl, that is in Ngong, and the Nairobi National Park, where compensation delays slowed down the contractor, China Communications Construction Company. Now, the 120 kilometers stretch has been built by the, of course, China Communications and Construction Company at the cost of 150 billion Kenya shillings. That equates to about 1.4 billion US dollars. And passengers services will only be available in 4 of the 12 stations. The Business Daily has quoted that saying it launches, of course, its launch lacks the fanfare witnessed at the opening of the first phase, which costed the country about 3 billion Kenya shillings, US dollars, to build, running from the coast city of Mombasa to Nairobi in May 2017. Now, the standard gauge railway line project has cost close to 3 times the international standard and 4 times the regional estimate. And the government explained the reasons for the high cost include the terrain that required many bridges, tunnels, and the land compensations, of course. About 80% of the money for the railway came from loans from China. The initial plan was for the railway to run from the coastal town of Mombasa to the lakeside town of Kisumu, and a possible extension to Uganda. The country will now need to borrow an additional 3.3 billion US dollars to complete the project. So this is being launched today, and I think also it has been contained here on the Daily Nation, page 4. Let me just quickly look at this, and then we can, when Dr. Matsanga gets here, we will talk about it more in details, and that and the other topic as well, political intolerance. Can it lead to political violence in Kenya? That is something that we will look at when Dr. Matsanga gets here. But some members of the it's supposed to be on page 4. Sorry, I'm reading page 6 about the MCAs and their theft. All right, so the government plans to launch an expensive railway line that ends in the middle of nowhere after the Chinese government pulled the plug on funding for the next phase. Now, that is according to the Daily Nation, and the Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia said the government will launch 4 infrastructure projects today, among them the double-decker Nairobi Express Highway, phase 2 of the standard gauge railway line to Suswa, a water project in Kimuka, and an inland container depot in terminal in Mai Mahiu. Details of the launch being organized by the Presidential Delivery Unit have been highly guarded, a big department from the glamour that came with the launch of the Mombasa-Nairobi line. So let me just leave that at that. When Dr. Matsanga comes here, we will talk about this. We'll have this conversation, and also we'll talk about the topic of the day, which is the political intolerance that can lead to political violence here in Kenya. All right, so a very good morning to you, and Kevo Ngong Rootsman. You love reggae, or are you calling yourself that? But thank you for joining. So let us just go straight to what is making headlines in Africa this morning, and we start with Mozambique. And now allegations that extra ballot boxes and voting materials have been smuggled into Mozambique to undermine Tuesday's general election have been dismissed as completely untrue by the body in charge of voter registration and the voting process. The Electoral Administration Technical Secretariat was responding to claims made by the two main opposition parties, Renamo and the Mozambique Democratic Movement, plus four smaller groups. They alleged that an authorized private company has, under cover of night, brought ballot boxes and voting material into Mozambique. Now, the STAE says all voting material is produced by the companies Academica and Uniprint, which won the tender. The opposition parties also say that two ballot boxes containing ballot paper already marked had been discovered in Coamba district in the northern province of Niassa. There, remember, Mozambicans went to elect their new president yesterday, and we will talk about that. And President, Filipe Nyusi is most likely to win according to the different polls had shown that he's likely to recapture this seat again. But we will see that because voting is currently underway there in Mozambique. And we go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where search teams in the Democratic Republic of Congo have found the wreckage of a government-chartered cargo plane which went missing last Thursday with 8 passengers on board. One of those was President Felix Tshisekedi's personal driver, the presidency told the BBC. The aircraft, also carrying military personnel, had provided logistical support for a presidential visit to eastern DR Congo. An aid worker from the Catholic Relief Service said he had visited the crash site in Sankura province, and local villagers had already buried the bodies of 4 people found among the debris. What? See, that I told you this story is not adding up for me, but we will talk about it. The Russian embassy in Kinshasa said 2 Russians had been on the Antonov 72 plane when it crashed. What were 2 Russians doing in a plane that was supposedly carrying out logistical support for President Felix Tshisekedi? We will talk about this just in a short bit. And we go to Ethiopia, where at least 22 people were killed in a landslide in Ethiopia after heavy rains pounded the southern region on Sunday. The disaster in Konta district, Daro zone, saw waves of mud destroy 5 homes, killing residents and animals, a local official has confirmed. And we move to Zimbabwe, where doctors in Zimbabwe have defied a court order to return to work, saying a pay rise offered by the government is too low. High inflation has reduced the doctors' pay to the equivalent of about $100 a month. On Friday last week, a court ruled the doctors' strike was unlawful and gave them 48 hours to resume their duties. The doctors said they could not comply with the court order because they lacked the means to get to work or to meet their basic needs. The strike is now on its 6th week. And we go to Guinea, where opposition members and civil society groups outraged by a potential revision of Guinea's constitution that would allow President Alpha Condé to seek a 3rd term in office are calling for a second day of a protest. At least 4 people were killed, one of them Gendam, in clashes on Monday. A live ammunition and tear gas were reportedly fired in clashes between the demonstrators and security forces. Hours beforehand, the capital city, Conakry, came to a standstill as news of the planned protest spread. Schools and businesses were closed and roads mostly deserted. Protests were also held in the cities of Labe, Mamu, and Kindia. Government and military statements published on Guinea news website Madia Gune saw a cabinet minister, General Burema Konde, describe the protesters as unpatriotic, and the armed forces chief of staff called them irresponsible. Interesting terms there they chose to use, these people, and we will talk about it. And we move to Uganda, where now Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni on Tuesday issued an ultimatum to the country's security agencies, directing the police to share a plan for combating urban crime in 2 days. The president, who was reacting to an increase in reported cases of burglary and robberies, described the perpetrators as pigs attacking people with machetes and mitayimbo. These are steel bars. Museveni's government, which for a long time prided itself on securing Ugandans, has in recent years struggled to deal with an upsurge in urban crime. And we go to Ivory Coast, where Ivory Coast's youngest opposition figure, Guillermo Soro, on Saturday officially declared his intention to run for the presidency of the country come 2020. The former rebel and former prime minister made the announcement during a meeting with some of his supporters in Valencia in Spain. Guillermo Soro's statement comes after President Ouattara floated the idea of possibly running for a third term in 2020. Okay, we will talk about that too. President Ouattara did not learn from what happened to his predecessor. He also wants to push the constitution and allow himself a third term. Like, what is wrong with our African leaders? You talk to me and let me know your thoughts on this. And we go to Tanzania, where refugees in Tanzania must go home. This is according to President John Magufuli. This comes after officials began mass repatriations of Burundians despite the concerns that they may face political persecution. And we move to Sudan, where a comprehensive peace agreement that will set Sudan on a path of political stability and economic recovery appeared feasible as the transition government and rebel groups entered a second day yesterday of negotiations in the South Sudan capital in Juba. Apart from the irony of South Sudan's President Salva Kiir being the mediator, forming an inclusive transition government in Juba by November 12th appears increasingly unlikely. The only setback for the Sudan peace was refusal by Sudan Liberation Movement's Abdel Wahid Mohamed Nur to honor his invitation. And we go to South Sudan, where a delegation of members of the United Nations Security Council will visit South Sudan this Sunday. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has confirmed. The delegates are led by South Sudan and United States, according to the United Nations mission in South Sudan. They will hold discussions with President Salva Kiir and other signatories of the revitalized agreement of the resolution of conflict in South Sudan. And we move to Nigeria, where the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed October 21st for the hearing of an application seeking the variation of bail conditions it imposed on the convener of #Revolution Now protest, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, and his co-defendant Olawale Bakare. And we end with Cameroon, where the different cyclists of the 2019 edition of the Grand Prix Chantal Biya International Cycling Tour were presented to the public yesterday. The different teams were presented during a ceremony that took place yesterday in Damako, eastern region of Cameroon. Thank you so much. That is the latest in Africa this morning. Let me just take a very short break, and then Dr. Matsanga will join me, and we will proceed with the rest of what is making headlines across Africa. We look at them in details, and then we look at the topics of the day. Don't go too far. Good morning, Africa.
I want to call upon the people of Abazonia today, wherever you are in the diaspora in Abazonia itself, that in a struggle you are bound to have divisions. But divisions should not divert you from the main focus, the main challenge. We have struggled to expose the happenings, the human rights abuses in Abazonia. The army has killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands, burnt houses of people, internet was cut off, schools were closed, dispensaries, hospitals were burnt down. Abazonians should not be intimidated by Paul Robia. It is not upon the leaders of Abazonia, because I am not from Abazonia, but I've played a pivotal role in making sure that I loud out the voices, I put out the call, I call upon AU, EU, United Nations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International. Many of them have listened to some of the things that I say here, and they have come at last. America, United States of America, is slowly moving towards giving the Abazonian people the dignity they deserve. I therefore call upon the leaders and the leadership of the Abazonian people to unite for a purpose. The unity of purpose is paramount, as opposed to disunity, which has nothing but only produces ego that we have seen in South Sudan. What What has killed South Sudan is not because they don't have the money, the minerals, the resources. It's ego between Riek Machar and the Salva Kiir. We would not like to see that ego come to the people of Amazonia, the leadership of Amazonia. I call upon Samuel Sako, Akanga, Milan, and Eko to unite and talk with one voice on international scene that will bring about the peace, the tranquility that you yearn for since 1961, when the resolution 1608 was abandoned by the United Nations General Assembly and Amazonia was annexed by the Cameroon government by then. I call upon you, my brothers, to pick up the unity call and free your people without disintegration. Thank you.
Welcome back. This is Good Morning Africa. And before we took a break, we were just looking at the news making headlines across Africa and the different countries. And also earlier on, we had looked at, the news making headlines in the leading Kenyan newspapers here. But now I'm joined by Dr. David Matanga. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Yes.
Yes.
So a lot of news here you've been reading. I think when you were just walking in, and then we can get into the topic of the day. So the wreckage of the plane that I told you yesterday had disappeared. So apparently it crashed, and just yesterday is when the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo learned that where the crash had happened, and they're saying that the residents in that area went ahead and buried the bodies, and Russia now is coming out and saying two of its citizens were part of that entourage. But when I was reading the news the other day, earlier in the week, it had not mentioned, the government had not mentioned that 2 Russians were on that plane. Are we reading too much into this story?
I think the story does not need to be exaggerated. Mm-hmm. There are several factors that rule Congo. The Congo politics is ruled by lack of infrastructure. I told you, and I've always been telling my students wherever I go for lectures in London, that Congo, there are people in the Democratic Republic of Congo who think that Mobutu is still the president. They think that Kabila is still the president. They don't know that changes have taken. Congo is so huge. It's twice the size of Europe. It's 4 hours flight, actually 3 hours flight. From Entebbe to Congo, you take 4 good hours, hammering the whole of that journey. So Congo is a huge country. Possibility of people not knowing what has happened or knowing that there is an accident, and the possibility of a lack of administrative structures which can communicate back to the DRC in the Republic at Kinshasa, at the Atlantic Ocean, or in Ngoma, or in Kisangani, or there's another city just near by the Ugandan border. Possibilities are remote. Mm-hmm. It could be people got their bodies and buried them. But that is one factor. But the second factor is, who were these guys? Where were they going? What does the radar system of DRC say? They were going where? To do what? And what were they doing at the time of the crash. What did the plane, where did it originate from? And I've told you also the possibility that Congo has airfields that are not on Google Map, because people use it for laundering money, dropping illicit goods, dropping gold, diamonds. They carry them every day to sell and leave those poor people who have buried those Wazungu. If they were Russians, God forbid, they were buried because they were mercenaries. They could be mercenaries with guns. They could have fallen in a rebel activity area. It's infested with so many calamities, including the rainfall, the forest itself is dense. That's one. The rebels under, you don't know which faction you can collapse to. Those who buried them might have taken the proceeds, what was remaining. If you find diamonds lying around, you don't want an exhibit. That is also a possibility. So DRC Congo is a country with a lot of contradictions. God created it with minerals, but God put there hardships for you to get to this place, to get what you want and come out alive. Possibilities are almost to hell. Any questions again?
Well, protests continue there in Guinea. Guineans are not happy with President Alpha Conde's wanting to seek that term. And also, as I was reading here, also President Ouattara is seeking to push for a third term. Do African leaders ever learn from anything?
They have never, they will never.
Especially Ouattara.
Yes, Ouattara should be in jail with Babuko.
Yes.
He's one of the few African leaders I don't want to talk about. He should have gone to jail. If ICC was competent, if Ocampo was not a gambler, a betting gambler guy who gambles money, gambles $11 million, which he has agreed on oath. If ICC was fair, it should have taken Ouattara and taken Babugo, because both of them worked on one aim. The goal was the same. They dismembered Cote d'Ivoire. But because ICC is an obnoxious, silly organization full of bandits who have gathered themselves in Europe, creating a Montego Bay of Europe, a Montego Bay where you take every Pakistani, every Al-Qaeda without even finding out whether they are Al-Qaeda or not, and lock them out. That's where they take us in Europe. Every black man who has committed a crime must go. Babugo ended up there. Several Africans ended up there, and they did not take Ouattara. So I'm not surprised that Ouattara is extending his term of office. It's a French territory. Again, last night I told you, there is no peace in a French territory. Where is the peace? Amazonia is bleeding. People have not gone to school for 4 years. Children growing up seeing schools but closed. This is the country Africa we have. This is the Africa which has several stupid things. Yes.
And before we get to the topic of the day, something here you've been predicting, it seems to be it might come to pass. And now a delegation of the members of the United Nations Security Council will be visiting South Sudan on Sunday.
Prepare for a tribunal. I told you. Dr. Riek Machar, I told you. Salva Kiir, I told you. There is a country, and among those visiting you tomorrow on Sunday, that has prepared a Security Council resolution. That Security Council resolution is not going to leave Sudan the same way it is today. Prepare for it. Be aware. Be very vigilant. You have hired a wrong mercenary. You have hired Rainbagger. Rainbagger is a CIA operative from Texas company. He's a CIA operative. How do you hire a CIA to go and slaughter you and say he's my advisor? You should hire people who don't want a tribunal to come to allow South Sudanese to solve this problem without taking them through a tribunal. Two, the peace agreement in South Sudan was done upside down. They started with wrong topics. They started with political settlement instead of accountability. There's a difference between the two. You can't start with a settlement of appointing Kadega Rabega vice president, another one vice president, and 5 is the country in Africa that has the highest number of vice presidents.
That it can't
Fine. Even if you prepare 200 vice presidents, if you have not done accountability of 384,000 people, sorry, Dr. Riek Machar, don't get me wrong, you are my friend. But this guy is perished. You need to answer for these crimes, some of you. Both of you leaders, you must tell the world what happened, who killed them, how were they killed, who bombed, who started the war. They are coming for you.
And just last week, Dr. Walio,
I can quietly, Dr. Riek Machar of phone, I'll tell you which country has drafted a resolution.
It's already, it has been drafted. So this will
Yes.
be a PR exercise they're coming to do. What are they really coming to do there? We know, of course, the peace process, but what else could be the motive of the visit?
It is just to finalize and come back and say, aware that we visited South Sudan on 20th of, we're going to this city and that city and that city. Very cautious of the human rights abuses, aware of the humanitarian suffering that the people of South Sudan are going through, cognizant of the fact that this country needs peace, very much disturbed that the neighbors of South Sudan, I'm doing an essay now for you, the neighbors of South Sudan have also contributed to the instability. Quoting the report of Clooney and the Pedicast of the century, aware that the looting, the corruption, the endemic corruption that has eaten the fabric of South Sudan, we, the members of the United Nations Security Council, seated here in Juba or seated here in New York, do hereby sanction a United Nations you can complete.
And Doctor, this comes at the backdrop of...
I have told you, that is the resolution.
Amnesty International last week and Human Rights Watch last week, they both brought out a report saying that a hybrid court is necessary in South Sudan.
There you are.
For accountability.
There you are. I have told you, if Riek Machar is listening to me, if Salva Kiir is listening to me, talk to me. You know Riek is my friend. Salva Kiir is my friend. They helped to bring peace in northern Uganda, in my own country. But they have failed now. If you failed in this November, if you fail to turn up, if you fail by any reason, brothers, prepare your jackets for the long haul in this tribunal, wherever it will be. Because I am honest. I don't know why people in Africa want me to plot. I was talking to some Zimbabweans this morning. They were saying that, oh, we prepare Mnangagwa for 2023. Stupid. How do you prepare Mnangagwa for 2023?
For what?
When Mnangagwa has not even done the economy. I told them, no, this is my friend for 20 years. His Excellency President Emerson Mnangagwa is my friend for 20 years. And I have access to him, not some of these people writing on Facebook. I can't tell him, I can't advise him to go and do 2023 elections when people don't have food in Zimbabwe. Prepare the economy. Give solutions for the economy first. And that is exactly what I'm telling Dr. Riek Machar. He's my friend, he's my mentor. He's the man who brought me to talk about conflict resolution. I love him. But if you don't show up, Dr. Riek Machar, you don't show up, the tribunal is waiting for you. They have brought The Security Council, 12 members, including rotational one, they are here. I will tell you quietly, the country that has drafted the resolution, if this language does not appear there, then tell me I'm a liar. They have already drafted a resolution for you. They want accountability because IGAD has been doing the thing upside down. You can't solve a crisis of that magnitude in South Sudan without accountability. You must put a framework. Agenda number 5 is accountability. But agenda number 5 overtakes the entire process of positioning yourselves with several vice presidents, because they will not be there if you have not accounted for 384,000 South Sudanese who perished under the bullets. Whether it was Uganda, whether it was who went there, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm not a commander. I am not a commander-in-chief of any of those armed forces. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And this is going to come out. You like it or you don't like it. Sorry. That's the truth. You have to account for those guys, the way you are bombing, the way people were killing these tall black people. They entered that country and started slaughtering people. They thought there would be no accountability. Shame on you. Accountability has now caught up with you. That's why this Security Council is coming. I'm sorry.
But they're here.
They are here, Mama, Papa, they are here. They are coming. In fact, they will be stopping in Nairobi on Saturday, or they have stopped in one of those capitals, either Khartoum, Nairobi, or Addis Ababa.
So they're just around here.
Yes. They have been monitoring the situation. They have read the report of George Clooney and the pedicast of Century. They have read the report of Human Rights Watch. Amnesty International.
Yes.
And you see, if Salva Kiir gave me that $1.3 million, I would have made a lot of noise. That one of the Security Council member who respects me so much would have walked out and failed to make this resolution.
Do you think the statement...
But they did not. They went and paid the wrong man. Let me emphasize this today, Miriam.
Yes.
Reinberger, when he was an ambassador in Kenya, helped to take Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, Muthaura, Joseph Arab Sang, Major General Ali, and another man called Kosige. Are they the only ones? Have I mentioned all of them? Yes.
6.
He helped to take Kenyans to ICC. How do you give a slaughterman to be your PR man? How? Do African presidents think? Do they have advisors? Can Reinberger campaign for you? Now, when these companies in the West, when they saw that Reinberger was not doing what they want, Dani had given this to Reinberger, they simply went and put wood in the fire to burn. And South Sudan will end up in a tribunal. Thank you.
Do you think that the latest move perhaps was advised by the statement President Salva Kiir made last month when he said he will go on and form the unity government? Whether Dr. Machar is there or not, he does not care. Could this have triggered this new, we're seeing active, action being taken, especially by the US now, and now you see the United Nations Security Council? Could it have triggered those statements?
Yes. They are aware that a certain faction in South Sudan wants to form government without, they have their listening grounds. They have CIA, they have all intelligence system, French, who are very interested, who listen to the drops of oil everywhere. Yeah, the French. Yesterday you saw, you were happy with the analysis of how they listen to oil. they come. If they know there is oil in Cameroon, they will not leave. The French were the people who marked that Turkana oil. When we grew up here, did you know that there was oil in Turkana? You didn't know. But the French knew. Yes, for many years. And unfortunately, they didn't get it. They lost. Thank you very much. I'm here.
Mozambique yesterday went to elections, and of course, right now there has been allegations that there were ballot boxes that were stuffed. Are we preparing ourselves to see a post-election chaos here in Mozambique, owing to how Renamo and Frelimo and the politics and the dynamics in Mozambique has been? Now there has been allegations of elections were not free and fair, stuffed ballot boxes.
Yes. One of the things, Bismarck Kabura, you know, I was only saying literally, but I was not saying I wanted that money. I've lived without that money almost to the age of Salva Kiir. We're almost age mates. Yes, they beat me by maybe 6-7 years to 10 years. Riak is about 73 or 71.
Riak Machar.
Yes, and I'm 64 this month.
So that.
Yes, so I've not lived with their money. I'm all right, but I tell the truth. Instead of having hired Renberger, if they hired a man like me who makes more better noise, organized, who knows where River Nile comes from, Renberger doesn't know. Renberger can tell you River Nile stretches up to Cape Town. But because he was a man from the West, because he was a man from the West, he was given as an ambassador. So for me, the situation of South Sudan pains me so much because all these people are my friends. They're my relatives. So they have a problem. They have to sort it. IGAD did not listen. Foreign ministers of these East African states are so proud. The one of Uganda, before you can finish the sentence, Kutesa tells you, I know. So what does he know? He studied one small degree of law. What does Kutesa know? More than you who have studied international relations, who knows conspiracies. Before you talk to Kutesa, because of money he has got, he tells you, I know. We almost had blows in Intercon. Me and Kutesa, serious blows. On the 6th floor, until the wife came in. I said, never do that to me. I'm a Mugisu. Don't do it to me. Don't underrate me. You don't sleep on me. That Kutesa you see there, that the foreign minister of Uganda.
The sanctioned foreign minister.
No, I don't know. But when you touch good blood, you get what you want. I was in the 6th floor. I had also booked to sleep there. Then he came and told me a very bad thing. He said, I had negotiated a peace agreement. Then he called me Konyiman. I said, you are very stupid. At least me, I'm not stupid like you. And we started it there. We were almost flashing each other out of the window. Now, these guys, they don't listen. They don't listen. Look at the bad strategy. IGAD has put a bad strategy on South Sudan. I don't know where Kalonzo Musyoka is. He should listen to this. Change the strategy of conflict resolution. Start with accountability. People will have respect and wait for you. What we did in Juba to stop the Konyi murdering more people, we started with very permanent ceasefire. Then we brought in accountability. We started giving accountability. Listen carefully. We gave that we need to do a process which will appease every Ugandan. We went back to Uganda to collect views. Ugandans said, we had two questions. Do you want to pardon Konyi, or you want Konyi to be taken to ICC? 98% of Ugandans said, pardon him. Let him, I'm telling you, we did it. Myself, Rugunda, and the rest, and even Riek Machar and the President Museveni allowed us to travel free address rallies. And we addressed several rallies. The delegation, both delegations, government and observers and the UN were there. And they were saying, please, 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 don't try to take these guys that way. They will prolong the war. What people have done about South Sudan is stupid. They have not used the proper route. They have begun with political positioning, giving these people airplanes to fly again. When people have gone down here, 60 feet, 300,000 people murdered. Start with appeasing the man, the people, the relatives of those who remained, so that they don't pick up guns to go and fight. That's what they call conflict resolution. Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm. So this accountability, Doctor, what should it look like in the context of South Sudan?
Mataput, jumping over the eggs, coming back to the village and say, I'm sorry. How many people did I return to Uganda? How many came back to Uganda through the program of the Northern Uganda peace process? Over 90,000 armed troops returned home with their children and the women and the what people and everything. Because we started the peace agreement in a different way. I am talking from experience. I was the leader of the delegation negotiating, chief negotiator, because I know the conflict, I know the subject. Don't tell me Kutesa knows more subject than Matanga. I know it. Tell me, I negotiated that peace, it is there. President Museveni is aware. Rugunda is aware. Who says it's not there? Who said they did not write for me a letter to go? Who? I will produce it anywhere in the world. There is already a peace agreement holding up to today. That's why it has not broken up. Not a single man who went back to Uganda has picked a gun to fight. They are peacefully doing some activities. Some have gone back to school. Some have opened shops. Some have opened petrol stations. Some are digging. Some are marrying. Hallelujah. But this one of South Sudan was done upside down. That's why it is failing. And I'm telling the truth. It will fail. And they are going to the security tribunal. This feast of Sunday, I hope, Riaka, you are listening to me. Talk to me after this show. Or I will talk to you. I'll call you. I know your numbers, all of them. I will call you and tell you. This feast on Sunday is a simple feast to confirm that we arrived. You know why? You know how they write their reports. We arrived at Juba Airport. We were welcomed. We visited President Salva Kiir. The prospects of peace seem to be very remote. Yeah, that's what they're going to write.
There have been a confirmed rumor that Machar might be in Juba, might come with them. So it has not been confirmed, but there have been such allegations or such statements being made out there.
Well, I raise my hands.
But it's not confirmed, so it's not official.
If he comes, I will be very happy.
I mean, you
but knowing what react.
But you said when he has united.
When he hears a tribunal, he will come. That's why I'm telling you, talk to me. I will tell you the country that has drafted the resolution for tribunal. In the name of God. Me, I don't lie. At my age, why should I lie and the lightning strikes me for nothing? Hey. We have a problem here.
We have a lot of problem there in South Sudan. So Sunday we'll see how that visit goes there. But they call this for themselves, so they have themselves to blame.
They called it for themselves. Mm-hmm. You are talking about Mozambique? Mm-hmm.
And I saw your friend
exactly.
Chisano yesterday making a statement about the elections in Mozambique.
That they were not free and fair.
No, he said he was telling his people to go and vote very wisely, very wisely. But now we see the allegations of ballot boxes and papers.
Let me tell you. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it poses a question which I've been asking every African who comes near my face. Does Africa need elections? Do we need elections, usually? Who brought this thing called elections to us? Who? That's the topic we are coming on next. Already in Kenya, the tongues are sharper than the brains. People are storming people's rallies, meetings. We are coming to that topic. Does Africa need elections? If we cannot safeguard our people during electoral times, the daytime of elections, do we need elections in Africa really? Do we need elections in Africa? Do we need to go to waste money, which could build a dispensary and a clinic, a school, a bridge, to conduct an election? Why can't we go back to our original format of how Africans govern themselves? Why can't we also create a hybrid election? A hybrid election. Traditional leaders mix with these men who wear suits and then collect money and go around with koffias. You know, every African leader wears now a hat to disguise the problems we have.
It's a camouflage.
Yes, this top is for this, you know them. They go, yes, Quattara is extending. Another man is extending. Another one is extending. Conde is extending. You tell me which African leader wants to leave power?
President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes, only that. It's only Kenyatta here who wants quickly.
He just wants to make sure.
So that we, with my friend Kenyatta, we fly into Addis Ababa. When we have removed this other tall guy, we shall make Pan-Africanism strong. You think, why do I labor here every day talking? Why am I talking? Does President Kenyatta pay me for talking? No. But I'm laboring because I know the future of Africa lies in him. That once he finishes his term of office, he will land in Addis Ababa. We shall be free to work without these problems. And then we can relax and make Africa stronger.
Will Musa Faki still be there?
No. Musa Faki, you saw the thing is hit 50,000.
Oh, I did not check it this
It is 50. We are going on. By the end of the month, we shall have over 2 million signatures. Mr. Musa Faki, you are in trouble. You touched the wrong button. I told you that you touch Matanga, I will mobilize the troops. I'm mobilizing Africans to come and rescue African Union. It is under siege from a Chad rebel, a Chad national who has sold it to the United States of America, no, not America, to France. So here you are, sign that signature, sign that one, sign. I have support of 6 presidents. And I won't tell you who they are. Believe me or not, and then 4 former presidents. So you'll see how you'll manage me. I will cause a motion of no confidence in that guy. He's not fit to be there. He's fit to be in the farm, in some bushes in Chad, in Jamena. He can't lead African Union. We have very intelligent people in African Union, in Africa, who can lead. We need an African Union which is vibrant against neocolonialism, against oppression, against sanctions. The African Union that should go to the AU, to the UN and say, remove sanctions on Zimbabwe. Don't sanction Africans. Remove sanctions on Ugandans. How will Ugandans go and work? Every Uganda is going to fear to be an inspector general of police. Yes, people are going to resign to be commanders of the army. You are disintegrating our state institutions. Because once you work there as an inspector general of police in Uganda, sanctions will come. If people kill people, they come for you. They arrest you. The big brother called America is watching. So we need an AU man, powerful, not an A man who goes to Paris to collect the per diem. Sorry.
So in case you're wondering what Dr. Batanga is talking about, yesterday, if you watched our evening show last night, I remember the AU representative to United States, Ambassador Chihombori, what is her name? But yes, she was fired.
Arikana.
Yes, Arikana, and no reasons were given for her firing. And right now, there is online, if you go there is a petition to reinstate her. And so she's set to leave office at the end of this month. So if you can go online and check out that petition, and if you can, and go sign it there, because AU owes us, because AU is a representation of Africa. And people are asking a lot of questions yesterday as I was reading a few articles online. Africans were asking, did the African Union leadership even consult with other member states, with the member states, with the heads of states, with the different countries that constitute the African Union? Or they just do whatever they want? They were supposed to even consult before they carried out. They did not consult.
Miriam, I'm told a message from that President Uhuru Kenyatta is right now speaking at the SGR, which is one of our topics.
Yes.
And the SGR is inaugurating, and is warning agitators against SGR. Matanga, yes, I've been telling you. Thank you, brother. Let's cross over. Bring him on the line for people to see. And again, I think General Haftar is playing tricks with me now.
General Haftar?
Yes, General Haftar. They know me. After I met them when Gaddafi was there. Now he's playing tricks. He says, Gaddafi is only son, the one I helped to rescue from ICC and from his clothes, from the rebel territory. He is free to stand for elections. Now he has changed my heart. Why?
The rebel has changed it.
Yeah, he has.
Renegade.
Because he has talked about the Gaddafi's son. I love that boy.
But
I fought for that boy. I fought for that boy to be free, to come out and give the legacy of his father. I want to thank the British government for listening to me on this. Thank you, British. They worked hard to get that boy out of to be killed. His fingers were being cut one by one.
Oh, no.
But now General Haftar, I think, has been listening to my programs. He has fixed on the side of Said Gaddafi, because he knows if he talks about Said Gaddafi, Matanga will keep quiet. I love that man. Let there be. My reasoning with the British and other people is that, please, let's leave something. Let's leave something of Gaddafi. Maybe it will be better in the times to come.
So what are his reasons? I'm curious.
He's now going to stand as the president. There is an election.
He wants to
stand. So Haftar is backing him.
Okay.
Now you can see it has become a mixture, a catalog.
Now this problem will be
a
colossal.
Cocktail.
It will be colossal.
Yes.
It will become
so he has got a basis to bomb Tripoli. Have you seen? The French are very good at working miracles. Why?
Again.
Oh, no, my God. They have worked miracles. They have listened to me. Yes. Thank you very much, France, for free lessons from me. Meanwhile, I won Turkey. Yes.
Bombing Syria there.
No, Turkey has sold airplanes to Farmajo. I've got every intelligence already. Tomorrow it is hot on this. Tomorrow is hot. We have a guest. Tomorrow it is hot on this bench. Turkey and Matanga, we are gonna down. We know where you are training the 1,000 Turkish Somali pilots, basically to prepare to bomb Kenya. We know it. And the Kenyans should take this seriously. I don't talk far. No, I talk with facts. Facts. You see? Thank you very much. Tomorrow is hot. But let's cross over to President Uhuru Kenyatta. He's talking somewhere in opening on Mombasa Road, where this railway starts to go towards Naivasha. The line is complete. Now, on the way from Mombasa to Naivasha, we arrive. Narok, all those branches now. You know, it's very good.
It is.
You can go to Narok so easily. Yeah, we have had a rough time going to Narok.
Yeah, yeah. If you're going to,
but I hope they have started the Platonic movement of the earth.
Yeah, that I think that is beyond us.
No, Platonic movement must be started when they will strike. I hope these Chinese simply did not move with the bridge like that.
This is Chinese we're talking about, not Chinese. I hope they did. Yeah. I don't know if the...
You see,
yes.
I hope you have started. So Turkey is on, I am on the radar. They are on the radar, my radar. They are now hammering Kurds. They are killing Kurds. Have you seen the conspiracy of the French? After starting that Syrian war, the French are very quiet. They left Turkey to hammer. You know the Kurdistan problem is worse in the entire Europe. They are found almost in every. In Iraq we have. In Syria we have. Some parts of Russia we have. So nobody wants to give them an independent state. That's why their leader, Abdallah Öcalan, for those people who are still naive, who were not born by then, Abdallah Öcalan is the leader of PPPK, which is the Kurdish freedom wing, like SPLA, like SWAPO, like ANC, like ZANU-PF, Frelimo, Zanura, Frelimo, NRM, all those, KANU, TANU, Tanganyika, African National Congress. You see, it is like that. It was fighting for the state called the Kurdistan state of Kurds. But they have been everywhere. They go, they are tortured. Now these guys went to Syria and brought a war there. We withdrew from there. Left these guys to be hammered. They are being slaughtered. But they have also found bad boys. The Syrians are with them. So Syria is saying, you come, we shall protect the Kurds, our people. You see that?
It's a mess there in the Middle East.
America, Trump just, technically, you know, international conspiracy, you need people, Africans, to encourage to study international conspiracy and intelligence networks.
Not international relations.
There's no international relations. Let's cross over to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Are we ready? Because while we are talking, President Uhuru Kenyatta is talking somewhere. That's why I was waiting for production team to give me a signal.
Give us a signal, Mama. Steve. Yeah, it's a mess there in the Middle East.
A big mess.
Started by the US, remember, even Iraq. They're saying it's not possible. It might take a while to get the links for the live. Steve has said it's not possible to get the link from President Uhuru Kenyatta. But we'll play the clip perhaps tomorrow in our next show, or yes.
Yeah, but we are talking about the same subject. So,
yes.
Thank you very much. President Uhuru Kenyatta today has commissioned, or is commissioning, the second phase of standard gauge railway, finally bring it to the operationalization of the rail between Nairobi and Suswa after a 5-month delay. Commissioning of 120 kilometers phase 2A project will see Madaraka Express passenger and freight services commence immediately. But the second phase of Kenya's new railway line running from capital Nairobi to Naivasha town will be open today for passenger services only, not freight. So now if allow anybody going to Oneshipai,
you can use that.
no more accidents, no more this. There, quickly, we are there. Yeah. We carry our bags and we are in Naivasha.
The traffic sometimes, especially over the weekend, from
yes.
Naivasha driving into Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That's a very good thing for us. We people who are holiday lovers. Yes. You don't need to spend your night in your weekend miserable in Nairobi.
Nairobi is beautiful.
Where? Where?
Your favorite place down there.
Where? Nairobi, you need it now. From Nairobi to Naivasha is like a 25 to 30 minutes to by train.
Or by train.
Yeah, let your driver go ahead and pick you from the station to the hotel. You sleep and then come back over the weekend. Now, thank you very much, Your Excellency President, for doing this for us. We as travelers and revelers
will appreciate.
We come here, we come Naivasha. Here we come. So that next week I can now tell Jeff and other people to prepare themselves to go for this new birthday party.
To experience, okay.
Can we go and swim with hippos?
Jeff will tell us.
No, you should be there. I've invited you in advance, Miriam. Please.
We'll talk about it.
This birthday party, you need to be there.
Okay.
So that you can enjoy this hippo. But don't go near the hippos because hippos kill.
You're scaring me at the same time.
No, it's okay. Jeff will arrange these things. I don't know where he is.
He's listening.
Jeff, Stephen, get in touch with Stephen to make those arrangements. You see, as people finish Mashujaa Day, our birthday, and apparently our birthdays run near each other with the president.
Oh yeah.
So you see, we October people have never had any problem with people. It's the people who are born in different months who come to disturb October people.
Why? What are you insinuating?
You know them.
I don't know them.
You know.
Oh, okay. So the
people who are born in different months, awkward months, are troublemakers. You check.
Awkward month like what, January?
I don't know. Check prominent people who are born, who are in Kenya, who are born in very awkward months.
I'm not boarding that train. That train of thought.
Go there. October people always bring peace to every situation.
Akuel Latia is also celebrating his birthday this month.
Including me. No, he wants to celebrate with me.
Oh, he wants to celebrate with you.
Akuel,
are you celebrating your birthday this month, or you want to be part of the
You want bring 12 bottles of cognac brandy Matero
and mango juice.
She wants mango juice from Makueni.
Because I don't drink. Anyway, joking, but
no, mango juice will be there. The good food.
Of course, good food.
Yes.
To be good food.
I want you to eat good food.
I eat good food.
Yes.
I make good food.
No, I know, but extra added without burden.
Without the
because
labor,
without going to the kitchen,
yes.
Putting on the apron.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, the project which commenced in 2017, it cuts across Nairobi, Kajiado, Nakuru, Narok, with 4 passenger stations: Ongata, Rongai, Ngongo, Mahiu, and Suswa.
The tectonic place.
Yes, that is it. That's also the worry. And the plans to be Duka Moja, Kisumu, hit a snag in April. 368 billion needed. But we shall do it, Mr. President. Don't give up. We shall do it. And we still believe that you can help us to do it. The most affected area was 35 kilometer stretch between Embur, Burgong, and the Nairobi National Park, where compensation had a lot of difficulties.
And that's why the Lands Commission, I think the new Lands Commission, I think they should look at that, because a lot of corruption went into that. So that is what the problem that is being experienced with the payments, and the place where the SGR was, the activities there was slowed down because the compensations for some of the people whose lands were acquired had not been done, and the former commission of lands, that was headed by that guy, I'm forgetting his name. I think the case, Swazuri, the case is still in court. A lot of people are not paid for this, so that is what stalled that area, that slowed down the works at that area, but we're expecting for it to be completed. It was completed.
So it will. Those were the people that were actually compensated, and then the launch today it's launched like the fanfare witness at the opening of the first phase, which cost $3 billion to build, running from the coastal city to the port, because we are a continuation. The standard gauge railway line project has cost close to 3 times. It is not a problem, because in Kenya, you compensate for land.
And they're also seeing the terrain there.
Yes. No, there are people in Africa who mislead the public. In Ethiopia, land is free. In Djibouti, land is for the state. Ethiopia, land is for the state. Tanzania, land is for the state. In Kenya, land is owned, private ownership. And you just can't come with a bulldozer and say, I'm digging this. You must compensate privately, because the system of Kenya and Uganda was the same. It was laid on the people ownership of land. So that's why the railway here costs more. Not because, yes, there was some money, people increased some money and so on. But people, you find even economists like David Ndii reasoning like people who did not go to Oxford.
He studied at Oxford.
Yes.
That's good.
If you have studied at Oxford, you better come here in Africa. If your head was big like the one of David Ndii, it should become smaller under your device. Yeah. I can't study in Oxford. I didn't get a chance to go to Oxford, but I got a chance to go to London Guildhall University, which is now called Metropolitan and Canterbury, of the highest Anglican, because I have that Anglican spirit. Katonda omulamu ye katonda ye nyini yoyo. Anglican spirit. So, and then I went a bit to Ealing Broadway, the Thames Valley University. I wanted to do European history. I failed the first semester. I ran very fast. You see, you don't do things in those universities which you don't know.
What was that you ran away from?
European history.
Yeah.
Because they brought things that I could not understand. Then I ran off.
You did what?
I went to conflict resolution, Great Lakes region.
Akuel will bring 12 mango.
Thank you very much for your 12 mangoes, but she doesn't deserve 12.
I'll come with my
Your knife.
My blender now, and then just make fresh juice. That will be it's the mango season.
So thank you very much, viewers. About 80% of the money for the railway came from China. Initial plan was the railway from the coastal region up to the end. The country will now need to borrow 3.5 million, 3.3 billion to complete the project. We pray for President Uhuru Kenyatta that this dream is got and he gets the money to build this railway up to the final end. We want to thank you very much on that one. And finally, we want to use these 20 minutes to look at violence in Kenya. The type of violence in Kenya, I will talk about it briefly without too much. Why I brought this topic today is that we are witnessing yet another format of words being exchanged. Yesterday we lost a human being in Uganda constituency in Malindi, where Madam Juma, Aisha Juma, stormed the meeting of ODM contestant, used the police, tear gas was spread, bullets were spread, a stray bullet killed this gentleman. The other time in that place, we lost another gentleman who was, I saw another man lying on the floor. In Kibra, we saw people stoning Mariga, is it what? What is his name?
Mariga.
This footballer of Betting.
Betting was closed down, but
I don't know.
McDonald.
Is it the McDonald building in the
Not the fast food restaurant.
Not the fast food, okay.
But the Jubilee candidate for Kibra.
Okay, oh, yeah, yes. Jubilee candidate.
You're being shady.
No, Jubilee candidate for Kibra, his car and other people stoned, they received a lot of injuries. This type of atmosphere of intolerance is what Kenyans should actually shun themselves from. We have gone there, we have been there, in 2007 we saw, 2017 we saw. Why don't we this time engage without violence? Why don't we get our mouths closed and use our brains to think when we are talking or before we talk? That's all the message I wanted to bring it today. If the government does not rein in these erratic Aisha Jumas, erratic speakers who are going around spewing hate messages, we are bound to go back to the square where we are, and yet we are supposed to be handshaking up to the end of the ballot box. Have I done it nicely? Short and precise. Delivered.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yesterday we had 9,000 viewers. You've seen it. It's going up.
The evening show. Yeah,
the evening show was very fantastic. God bless you. God bless all of you. Tomorrow, it will be lovely. It will be lovely.
And we will be talking about?
About Somalia.
Somalia and things in
Turkey.
And Turkey.
The countries that are now fueling the real war. Remember, Turkey is one of the Ottoman Empire.
It has a huge
remnants.
And it has a huge presence in Somalia.
Yes, remnants of Ottoman Empire. The traits of Ottoman Empire of conquering East Africa and the Indian Ocean Peninsula still remains in Turkey. I'm coming for you. Thank you very much, viewers. Unless Miriam has one other word.
I'm sure Edowan will be tuning in tomorrow. I want to thank you so much for your viewership. We thank you for engaging with us today. This has been a Good Morning Africa show, and thank you so much. So we hope to see you here on our next broadcast.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless all of you. This station, therefore, is for Africa, with Africa, by Africa. Charles.
First of all, let me thank you. I've prepared 2 papers which I believe will be circulated because they'll not be projected. But if you can see, first of all, I want to agree with the Honorable Minister. I've done 2 pictorials. One of them is described as Africa at the dinner table. And if you look at Africa at the dinner table, Africa is on a plate and it is meat. And the diners at the dinner table are France, the United Kingdom, the United States, the European Union, the Chinese, and progressively the Arabs. And my second picture is the African hotspots. It's not visible from there. But if you look at Africa today and you make a clean sweep with your mind, there are different conflicts of different intensity in Somalia, in northern Mauritania, in northern Mali, in Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Guinea-Bissau, in the Cameroons, in South Sudan, and one can go on and on. And there is a sense in which Africa has always been alive to the question of interference. I will refer this audience, particularly those who are starting, to take time and read the 32 odd speeches that were made in the month of May 1963 by the then heads of states and government of independent African states, the 32 of them. And there are two speeches that I want to isolate for this presentation. One was by David Dacko of Central African Republic. And in thanking Emperor Haile Selassie and Kwame Nkrumah on that day, he said that we must never forget that the colonial power has not left us. We must recognize that he did not go willingly. And if we don't check them, they'll come back again. And what would little Central African Republic do against them? Today, he is right. Today, if we remember the activities of France and how they have propped up the regime of Jean Bedel Bokassa, he was right. Today, as the Honorable Minister has indicated, Africa remains the only continent in the world that is referred to in these terms, Anglophone, to mean that we are a sphere of our erstwhile colonizers. About 2 weeks ago, there was a meeting of the Commonwealth in London, England. And a friend of mine who is an Anglophile sent me the photograph very gleefully, saying this is a meeting of 53 equal states. I told him, no. If it was so, why is it that the leadership of the Commonwealth is hereditary rather than rotational? In other words, in the minds of the British, her former colonies are still under her tutelage. And I want to submit to us that in the minds of what I'll call the conceptual West, they think they have a divine duty to instruct Africans what to do. True. And in the minds of many African leaders, they think that they have a divine duty to accept what they are told. That, in my view, is what the Honorable Minister was talking about, the mindset. And this is something that has been examined. We have seen France and its very pernicious presence in Africa. We know what they did in Burkina Faso against Thomas Sankara. We know what they did in Mali or the Sudan against Modibo Keita or against Sekou Touré in Guinea. Pernicious to the core. The Portuguese, we know what battles had to be fought in that area. And let me put this very bluntly. When the former leader of Portugal, Marcelo Caetano, was asked, why can you not allow the colonies to gain independence? This is what he said in substance. As I have examined world history over the years, the following have emerged. That the Caucasians have been responsible for monumental discoveries in the development of man. So have the Chinese, so have the Arabs. But the Africans have been responsible for nothing. They are only fit as hewers of wood and drawers of water. And I want to submit to you who are present here that in the conceptual West's unguarded moments, or guarded moments, that is what they think. And that is how they relate to Africa. So the whole idea that they will interfere is something that they think is their God-given duty. I said there were two speeches in 1963 that I wanted to refer to. I referred to David Dako. The second one was the speech by Kwame Nkrumah. And Kwame provided the solution. He did not complain about colonialism. He said, we must live here with one army, with one command. We must live here with one currency. We must live here with one currency, one country. I do not know where its capital will be, but I suggest Leopoldville or Bangui. Other leaders may have their thoughts. Kwame was right, but who listened to him? Several years down the line, and I've said it in my paper, there were coup d'etats which were engineered, there were mutinies which were engineered, and other forms of destabilization. And I want to believe that the person who actually said it very well in the 1980s was the former American President Ronald Reagan. He said, the United States of America does what is in her best interest. And I agree with him. Does Africa do what is in her best interest? Do African leaders do what is in the best interest of Africa? Interference will be there in very blatant and brazen ways and in subtle ways. I've always asked, until very recently, how many African countries manufactured bullets? Very few. Until very recently, how many African countries, in fact, how many African countries manufacture jet fighters? How many African countries are involved in the arms industry? Some of the leading conceptual West countries which pontificate to us about prizes, peace prizes, are the leading manufacturers of landmines. And if you look at their foreign exchange earners, it is the military and security items. So they say with their mouths, what do they not believe in their hearts? In Kiswahili we say, vita vya panzi furaha ya kunguru. That when the locusts are fighting, it is the joy of the hawk. Because when they kill each other, they get the food easily, dead. It is in the best interest, I dare submit, without fear of contradiction, that the elite in the conceptual West does not want Africa to stabilize, despite their assertion to the contrary. And you'll see it in every country because conflict is a major industry. Today, you look at South Sudan and the many peace conferences that are being held, but if you ask who supplies the arms, who provides safe havens, it is the conceptual West. And when I use the term conceptual West, I'm saying that it extends to countries which are geographically not in the West, like Australia or Canada. So I'm submitting in answer to your question, Joe, that interference is there, and it is part, to use this old cliche, of the neo-colonial project. The neo-colonial project requires that Africa must remain within the sphere of influence of these states. Today, if you look at the United Kingdom, which has left Europe, one would have thought that those are their cousins and that they should sit in comfort with them. You will now see their involvement being de-emphasized in Europe and their interest and appetite growing towards the Commonwealth. Because in the Commonwealth, they are the major domos. They'll tell us what to do. In Europe, they have to grapple with the Germans and the French, and they don't like it. That is the unspoken bit of it. The French also are in Europe, but the Germans are too strong, and they don't like it. So they want to hold Côte d'Ivoire, Gabon, and tell them what to do. I do not know how many of you saw the press conference that was attended by President Macron of France and Nana Addo of Ghana. And when Nana Addo spoke as an African should, you could see the body language of the French president. How dare this man speak this way? In other words, I'm saying that interference is the mother's milk of European economies. But to answer your second question, they have their own recruits who Professor Philip Nying'oro will be speaking here. To use the old vocabulary of those days, they have the people you call their comprador bourgeoisie. You must remember. The comprador bourgeoisie are Africans with black faces, but essentially they are doing the bidding of these powers. They are the ones you'll find them in different spheres. And they will be present. They are in your cabinet, but they are actually representatives of the foreign intelligence agencies of those countries. We know this. If you look at the declassified papers from the United States, we now know that some of leading cabinet ministers in many African countries were working for the CIA or some Western agencies. So you are sitting in cabinet, and in these days of the mobile phone, they are possibly texting their masters in Europe and America. So interference is also exacerbated by these comprador bourgeois for their own benefits. And it has never changed, Honorable Minister. In the early days of slavery, they gave some of the chiefs mirrors and alcohol. Today, what they give them are flats in Paris or in Dubai. And that is what makes them undermine Africa. The third mode of interference is through institutions. Look at the competition as it is now. There is a new entrant into the market that is called China. China is very subtle. Many people wrote the obituary of Rwanda in 1994. 20 years down the line, it has been demonstrated that Africans can actually do it. Between 1983 and 1987, I think Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso also demonstrated that it can be done. We saw in Somalia, despite their problem. So my prescription is African unity. Africa must now begin to negotiate initially in terms of blocks, SADC, ECOWAS, East African Community, and ultimately as African Union. And lo and behold, we must do it. And I've always said this cliche, we must do it, because if we don't do it, we will be done. Thank you.